Hey UVic students, my name's Emily and we're here for another candidate interview series. We have Walt Parsons here today. Walt, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Walt Parsons. I'm running for the Communist Party of BC in the riding of Victoria Swan Lake. And I just want to say I encourage all students, anyone eligible to vote, to get out and vote on or before the 24th of October.
Okay, thanks for that.
No
Um,
worries.
so we're going to start with some non-political, easy questions here. What is a book that had a big impact on your life?
A book that I have to be honest, and as problematic as it is now, Harry Potter.
Fair enough. Do you have a favorite coffee shop in your riding?
In my writing? I really like Spiral. I think that's just out of my writing.
Nice. Okay. Are you a dog, a cat, or more of a goldfish kind of person?
I'm definitely a dog guy.
A goldfish dog. Nice.
A goldfish dog.
There's some hesitation there.
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so into the real stuff here. Costs like tuition and housing continue to rise while students' incomes have dropped significantly during the COVID-19 crisis. I'm wondering how you plan to tackle the rising costs of education and the cost of living for post-secondary students.
So it's not a secret that the Communist Party would like to make tuition free across the board for everyone in the province. And it might be a little bit more of a secret that we intend to build 100,000 units of new or renovated social and low income housing. By really plugging the market with a lot of affordable units, we should be able to significantly reduce the rent burden on students. Furthermore, we also do have in the federal platform a call for a student allowance, a stipend. So like not only would tuition be free, but you would be paid to attend university or college, so that you'd be paid enough to eat and not worry about life while you work on yourself and work on your studies.
Great. And I just wanted to clarify that that's in the federal communist
That
platform.
is in the federal platform, but we honestly, the provincial party is somewhat of an arm of the federal party. So we would work to do whatever we can across any jurisdiction that we have power in.
Okay. What about job opportunities or just, yeah, generally that side of things?
General job opportunities. I definitely within the attempt to build 100,000 units of affordable housing and to renovate existing units. Tens of thousands of jobs exist there, and these are jobs that are in the communities that people live in, where they reside and where they want to spend their time, rather than having man camps scattered in far corners of the province. We want people to enhance the communities that they live in.
Cool. Okay. That's kind of a good transition here. So students overwhelmingly believe that the climate emergency requires both an immediate and an effective response from all levels of government. I'm wondering, do you support ending oil, gas, and LNG subsidies in BC and using those funds to support what some might call a Green New Deal or a just recovery?
Absolutely. Whether we call it a Green New Deal or a just recovery, ultimately we need to fight climate change. The Communist Party is 100% committed to ending any and all subsidies to the oil and gas sector. We would go further by nationalizing this sector and bringing it under public control and democratic ownership. By taking the profit, by taking the proceeds of these businesses while we ramp them down as we head towards net zero, by using those profits and proceeds, directing them back towards the people of British Columbia, rather than lining the pockets of multinational corporations or rich shareholders, we can both enhance life for the citizens of British Columbia and fight the climate change, fight the climate crisis.
And just to specify there, you mentioned taking the funds, what would be normally put towards subsidies and giving them back to British Columbians. I think typically students think of a just recovery as taking those subsidy funds and putting it towards green energy and job growth in the clean energy sector. Is that what you meant, or did you mean more direct repayment to?
No, absolutely, yeah. Like rather than, we're not necessarily looking to cut checks that say carbon rebate or anything like that. No, we would take money that would ordinarily be going to private profit and investing in British Columbia's transition. So we would lean into like local distributed renewable energy projects, really taking into account like Indigenous title and looking like giving them a full veto power on any projects in their territories. But we would really look to build the projects that people want to see in their communities. Offshore wind is a very compelling option of renewable energy. So everyone seems to like solar panels, and there's a lot that we can do to get rid of thermal and diesel generation in the province. We're often told that we're very, very clean in BC, and it's true. But about 10% of electricity in this province still comes from thermal fuels. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So UVic students have also expressed really strong desire to create a more socially just province. Current measures by municipalities to reduce systemic racism in police forces simply haven't solved the problem, and economic inequities in marginalized groups to continue to create generational challenges for children, families, and communities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering what sort of specific changes you would make to the Police Act to address systemic racism in policing, or just in general, like how you would address systemic racism.
It'd be difficult to get into the specifics of the Police Act because it is a very long and complicated piece of legislation. But as a Marxist, as a member of the Communist Party, we recognize the position of police in capitalism, and that is to act as a force of oppression of the working class and Indigenous communities and people of color. We've witnessed horrific police brutality in the United States, in Canada, particularly the NDP's criminal invasion of Wet'suwet'en land. But we feel like merely legislating reform of the police isn't sufficient to end the class antagonisms that underlie policing. The abolition of policing without addressing those antagonisms would likely result in the establishment of fascist paramilitaries and private mercenaries enforcing laws that we might not consider just. However, like recognizing the limited power of the provincial government, we would work to defund the police and to divert resources for policing to community aid programs and general affordability and quality of life for British Columbians.
Okay, thanks for that. So how will you address mental health in communities, and yeah, just in general, your approach to mental health supports at a provincial level?
So I feel personally mental health for me, the conversation in British Columbia right now really revolves around also a lot with the crisis of opioid abuse. And so much of that stems from the war on drugs. So on that aspect, the Communist Party of BC would implement a safe, permanent, legal, and regulated supply of drugs, while we would significantly ramp up funding for mental health, long-term rehabilitation, and recovery programs for individuals. We then have to supplement that with what I said earlier, like affordable homes. We need to get people into homes and out of shelters, places that they can really feel safe and, you know, in their own domain. But yeah, by investing in that affordable housing, in the mental health and recovery programs, then we can start to really address like the social and health costs of having people sleeping rough on the streets and in parks and the like.
Okay. So 4 years after Bill 23, which is our Sexual Violence and Misconduct Policy Act, we continue to hear from students that many post-secondary institutions simply haven't implemented effective sexual violence and misconduct policies. I'm wondering, how will you create and regulate minimum standards for post-secondary institutions to ensure that these policies are funded and that institutions have the resources to create a safe campus environment?
Very important question, really. So the Communist Party of BC would work to establish a commission composed intersectionally of individuals most at risk, of individuals with a particular insight into sexualized violence and misconduct. Particularly, we would talk to groups I know that exist locally, such as the Anti-Violence Project, the Victoria Sexual Assault Center, like just really understand what these groups want to see enacted. Then based on the recommendations of this commission, we would outline guidelines for the post-secondary and other institutions to follow. However, we would give teeth to this legislation, and institutions that don't follow through on these guidelines would be subject to penalties. And we would like these penalties to be severe if institutions aren't following through on their promises.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for all your answers today, Walt. And I'm wondering, is there a way for students to get in touch with you or give any feedback following this interview?
Absolutely. So we have the campaign Facebook page, Walter Parsons for Victoria Swan Lake. But I'm a communist. I have a very open personal Facebook account. You can find me on Facebook. There's very little privacy. Come through, send me a message, post on my wall, whatever. I aim to listen and to be reachable. So Facebook primarily.
And that's how I found you and scheduled this interview. So it does work.
It does work, and I appreciate you reaching out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.